This is the Freedom No Pull harness. It's a lot different than some of the other front clip harnesses that simply go across here and have a clip in the front. This one actually has a clip in the back and in the front, and you have several choices on how to use it. You can also, it either comes with, you can purchase separately, this double type leash as a loop for your hand here, and the leash goes through a ring here, and it has two clips to use on the Freedom harness. You have several choices on how to clip this. You could do one to the back here and one to the front here, and it gives you 2 points of control for a dog who might pull. Might be a little bit more comfortable for the dog and the human. Now, of course, you eventually want your dog to learn to walk beside you, but if you have a large dog and you're a slight person, you definitely might need some control for safety issues. Now, if your dog pulls a lot, you might just want to have most of the pressure on the front, and you could hold the leash here, or you could only clip the leash to the front. As a matter of fact, you could double click it since it has two ends, or double leash it here, and the dog could just walk with the clip in the front. If you have a dog that's not pulling at all, then you could put any leash here in the back, or use the leash that comes with it and clip here. Something else that I like about the Freedom harness is that it has almost like a martingale effect on the back here. If the dog tries to lunge forward or lunge back, it'll tighten here, so it's gonna be harder to pull out of it. Now, for added safety, I do like to have a martingale. I like the comfort of a harness, yet the safety of a martingale. And once again, with the martingales, they tighten if the dog pulls, so it's harder to slip out, because the dog can easily slip a regular collar. And the beauty of these is that they don't, if you adjust them properly, they don't keep tightening like a choke chain or a slip lead would. Now, once again, using a collar, you have several choices. You can have a point of contact here at the neck and a point of contact at the back for greater control. You could have 3 points of contact if you're willing to have an extra leash. You could put one end to the back, one end to the front, and another leash at the collar, like so. Or you can use one of these tiny couplers that I introduced in another video. These are just couplers made for walking two small dogs together. It has a loop in the middle and two clips on the end. You can clip one to the martingale, and we'll take a regular leash this time, and you could take the leash here, clip it to the ring in the middle, and then clip that ring in the middle to the back ring of the harness. Then take the extra clip and clip it to the back end of the clip that goes on the leash. And now you have double protection with just all of the weight being on the back, or all of the force being on the back of the harness. The martingale isn't being pulled on if the dog pulls. The martingale is there in case the harness slips over the dog's head. If you want to use the double leash system with the backup as a martingale, once again, the martingale attached to the coupler, the middle of the coupler attached to the back of the harness, and the extra one attached to the clip here of the coupler. And then we're using the double leash that comes with the Freedom harness once again, and we clip this end of the double leash to the front of the Freedom harness. So now you still have control in the back and the front, and you have the martingale as a backup. But once again, all the pressure is on the chest and the back behind the shoulders. There's no pressure on the martingale. Unless the harness slips off, then the martingale hopefully stays on the neck, because it'll tighten up. So basically, you have a backup to the martingale, or if something happens and the martingale still came apart at the clip, then you have this front clip. So you have a front clip in case that clip fails. You have a back clip. If that clip fails, then you have the martingale. And this is especially great if you have a very skittish dog, especially one who might be afraid to come to you if they get loose, or a dog who's easily spooked. And even though you have all this triple protection, you're still only actually carrying one leash, because this is a double leash that's run through a loop here, and it has a loop to hold your hand. So you don't have a lot of leashes to worry about actually. Even though you have two leashes attached, you're only holding on to one leash. The other thing I like about the Freedom harness are these double clips. It's really great if you have a dog who's nervous about being touched, or if you have a dog who might be arthritic and he has a hard time lifting his leg, because with most harnesses you have to lift one leg to get it on. And I'll demonstrate these two clips here. I'm going to unclip both of them. I'm going to put it on the dog. Just goes over the head here. And you notice I don't have to lift the leg or manipulate the dog in any way. It's also great if you have a dog whom you are asking the dog to sit still. You don't have to move the dog around. The dog can sit perfectly still while you're doing this. You put the front section underneath the dog's chest, under the tummy. Bring it through. Clip one end over here. And one end on the other side. And you're ready to go. Now, of course, if you have a dog who's freaky about the clipping sound, now you've made two clipping sounds, so that's something to consider as well. And speaking of the clipping sound, let's discuss that for a little bit, because some noise-sensitive dogs can really hate that clipping sound. If you use your fingers at the opening of where the clips, then you might be able to muffle the sound a little bit. For instance, if you just put them together like so, it can make a loud noise. But if instead you put your fingers right at the grooves here, and then be careful not to pinch your fingers, and then push it through, and you're kind of squeezing it as you're pushing it through, and it made no noise at all. One more time. Put your fingers at the openings here that it normally clips through. Put your leash through, and you're squeezing it as you're pushing it in, and no noise, and it's secure. You want to practice a few times before you try it on your dog. Also, be extra careful not to pinch your dog's skin or to get your dog's hair roughed up into this. Let's say that you want all the pressure to be on the front because you have a very strong puller, or you only have a front clipping harness and not the Freedom harness that has a clip on the front and the back. You still can use your martingale for extra protection, but the coupler may or may not work depending on the size of your dog. As you see, this coupler is going to be too long. If I clip here and here, it works. You have the double protection here, but you have a lot of stuff basically hanging down from the dog's neck. Especially if you have a small dog, this might not be comfortable. You might be able to find a smaller, lighter coupler to make this work, but what would probably work better in this instance would be a clip. Now, this clip is a little heavy for this size fake dog, but you can experiment with what type of clips you want to use. Let's give that a try. Now remember, this clip is really big. You want one a little smaller if you have a smaller dog, but I took the clip to one clip to the martingale and one end to the loop on the front of the harness. This will work for the Freedom harness or a front clip harness. And then you can hook your leash here. So that way, if any clip breaks, you'll have the backup here. This is probably not as redundant as using the clip and all three ends of the clip, but it's better than having no redundancy at all. And if you take a look at it, if the dog happens to pull, still all the pressure is across the chest and not the martingale. The martingale is still there as a backup. And if your dog is walking nicely and not pulling, then you can see it's still hanging at the chest and not the martingale itself. For extra protection, if you want, this may or may not work if you have a tiny dog. It might get a little bit too heavy, but if you're extra concerned about your dog getting loose, you can have more protection than what I've already shown. You can still have the clip here, the front of the martingale to the front of the harness, and using your double Freedom leash again, then clip to the front O-ring. And then once again, taking your baby coupler, and you'll clip that to the front of the martingale and bring it back to the back of the harness. Once again, the middle of the coupler goes to the ring of the Freedom with the other end of the double leash. And once again, as a triple redundancy, then this goes through this part of the clip, the back part of the clip. So that way if the front part of the clip fails, you still have the back part clip here. So now you have redundancy in the back and redundancy in the front. And once again, even though you have all of these backups for backups, you're only actually holding one leash. Now the leash that comes with the Freedom harness is very convenient, but it's a little short for my taste. It's about 5 feet. If you want to use something similar, you could get a Euro leash. You can buy these off some pet websites. T-Touch, the T-Touch website has one that I like. It's very lightweight. And it has a clip on both ends. And it's longer than this clip leash, even if you double it. And what I like about the Euro leashes is that you have all sorts of choices. You can make yourself a handle. If you're only using one end of the leash, you could clip to this ring here. There's several rings along here. Now you have a handle. If you need to go somewhere and you need to leave your dog by a tree while you stop to tie your shoe or something, you could wrap this around the tree. You could make a big loop here to wrap it around your shoulder or your waist. There's lots of different possibilities with this. Or you can use it as a double leash. One end here at the front or at the back of the harness, and the other end here at the front. You don't really have a hand loop now, but you do have a loop for control. I'm going to turn the camera off and then zoom out. So you're still just dealing with one leash. It's looped in 2 places. And remember, you can do your double and triple redundancy here as well. And you still have 2 points of contact. And you can actually use both hands if you really need to guide a dog that's unsure about where he or she is going, or if you're dealing with a very strong dog. And while we're on the subject of Euro leashes, another thing I like about them is it makes it easy to walk 2 dogs. You can clip each dog here, and you're only holding one leash to hold 2 dogs. But if you want to give the 2 dogs more space, you can clip 2 leashes together, but also have that redundancy. So instead of just clipping here, if something breaks, then the leashes come apart, you can clip in several places. For instance, because of the different rings here, you can clip here and here. So basically you gave yourself a handle in the middle, and if one comes apart, you still have the other one there. And then you have the 2 clips on the end, and the dogs have plenty of freedom if they need some privacy to go potty or something. Also, if you have a dog with some muscle soreness issues, or if you have trouble just getting these to fit correctly, you might want to look into some of the softer harnesses. It might make a dog more comfortable. And if the harness is pretty wide and soft, it might even have sort of an anxiety wrap sort of effect. You never know. Something like this doesn't have all of the adjustments and all the plastic and the thin strips. But personally, I really like these, but personally I don't like how much you have to manipulate the dog to get them in. Preferably what you want is to teach the dog how to step into them. If not, you'll be moving their paws around to get these on, because they're basically a step-in harness. And there are probably some that you don't have to step in. But the beauty of it is there's only one, once you get it on, there's only one clip in the back. And since these are much softer, they might not be as sturdy as the other harnesses, so you'll still want to use your martingale backup, and you can. Here's the tiny coupler, and this fits a little differently here. You might want to make your coupler a little longer, adjust it accordingly. attach your leash like so. You could also use a backup system with your gentle leader. I don't own a gentle leader, or I couldn't find mine, so I made something that kind of looks like one. This is not what a gentle leader would look like at all, but just to give you an idea, there's something around the snout here. There's a ring that hangs down from the snout, and then there's a part that goes, a strap that goes behind the ears here. I've seen a lot of dogs wiggle their way out of this part. Lots of times it'll stay behind the ears here if they do wiggle themselves out. But the gentle leader is very lightweight and thin, so some very determined dogs could possibly snap the plastic or even snap the nylon. So it's nice to have a backup. Plus, you might not want all the pressure on the gentle leader if you have one of those dogs that knows how to crook their neck to try to get around the gentle leader. So you can have your backup system once again, and you could use the coupler, or once again the clip, or a smaller clip. Just clip the front of the gentle leader to the front of the martingale, or to the front of a harness if you have that, if you have a front clip harness, like so. And now you could use the double leash that comes with the Freedom. You could use the double Euro leash, or you could use 2 leashes or 1 leash. What I would do is, I would probably use the Euro leash for this. Just depends on your preference. Clip 1 to the martingale for control of the head. Like so. And clip 1 end to either the martingale or the back of the harness, whichever you prefer. Let's do both. So we have a clip here to place the Halti with the martingale, so they're clipped there. And then I clipped my leash to the Halti here. And then the other end of my Euro leash I'm going to clip to my harness here. So now you have the point of contact at the head here, underneath the snout, and you have a point of contact on the back. And you're only holding 1 leash. And you could use 2 hands if you feel like you need to for greater control. And this will actually be excellent for bat related things if you need to turn your dog around. Or if you have a dog who's walking nicely, you can have most of the pressure on the harness until the dog comes around something that upsets them, and you could use your gentle leader to turn the dog around if you have to. Preferably you want to call the dog around. Or if you want all the pressure on the Halti only, you can just have a clip of the leash attached to the Halti. You can have this spring clip attached to the martingale, and you walk the dog basically on the Halti, but if the Halti comes apart, it is still attached to the martingale. By the way, Halti is a brand name, Gentle Leader is a brand name. There are several different types of brands that work on controlling the dog's head. And so when I say Halti or Gentle Leader, I mean any of the nose halters or the snout halters. So you can have 2 leashes here, or 2 ends of a leash here, the martingale and the Halti. Or you could have 1 end at the Halti and 1 end at the back of a harness if you prefer the harness, without the clip. Or if you do want to put a clip there, you can do that as well. Just all sorts of combinations you can try out. For more training tips, see our webpage, stubbypuddin.com, STUBBYPUDDIN, or like Stubby Puddin on Facebook. Thank you.